There's 14,000 marketing and ad tech startups in the world. There's a huge amount of innovation that is happening beyond the four walls of your corporate, or whether you're a corporate, or whether you're in government, whether you're in agencies, or whether you're a consultant. There's so much more innovation happening beyond the four walls of your organization. And it's really important that we recognize that, and we look at, most importantly, how we engage with that. I spent the last 13 years at Unilever, and I left Unilever 6 months ago. But when I was at Unilever, I was very much responsible for helping Unilever to pioneer the future of the organization, where I was a director in Unilever's new businesses unit, to pioneer the future of marketing, where I ran and led the Unilever Foundry. And now I've left Unilever to help other companies go on this same journey. But what I wanted to do in this session was just share with you my experience of running the Unilever Foundry. Because I think it's a really good case study which will hopefully enlighten and inspire you to think about how you could be engaging with startups as well. So as you know, HUL, or Unilever, as it's known globally, is home to over 400 global brands, operates in 192 countries, annual revenue is over 50 billion euros, and it's also the world's second biggest advertiser. Unilever spends well over 7 billion euros a year marketing its products. And therefore, the company is always looking for new ways to connect and engage with the 2 billion consumers that Unilever serves every day. And 4 years ago, I had the great opportunity to work on this brief. How can we pioneer the future of marketing? How can we bring new innovations back into a big company like Unilever? And the first realization we had was that, well, pioneering the future of marketing means that we have to be connecting with the pioneers, and that's not coming from us, it's not coming from our traditional agency partners. We have to look beyond that. In fact, we looked at 3 different things. We realized if we wanted to pioneer the future, we had to transform our culture. We had to move from a culture which is built around plan and perfect to a culture which was much more about launch and learn. We had to enable experimentation. Unilever was very good at working on very big launches which were very well curated. But if we wanted to pioneer the future, we had to make, getting to the future first, this means you have to make mistakes much quicker than anyone else and learn from that. And so we had to have this attitude of fail fast. And then we also had to be engaging with the pioneers. If the innovation was happening on the outside of our organization, there's 14,000 different marketing and ad tech startups that we could or should be engaging with, then we had to have a conduit into that. And up until then, really, the only way that we engaged with the outside was through working with our traditional big partners. And so you can boil this down into 3 things. We had to revamp our processes, we had to revamp our culture, our people, and we had to revamp the platform and enable collaboration. And so to introduce the Foundry, I've got this short video that just gives a bit of an overview of what the Foundry is and how it worked.
In a VUCA world, we have to continually think about the changes that are going on around us. We need to innovate, and innovate on an ongoing basis. The Foundry process is pretty straightforward. It has 4 simple steps. The first one is the brief, then the pitch, then the pilot, and hopefully the partnership.
We engaged the Foundry because we had a specific challenge that we wanted to tackle. The challenge that we have in today's environment is that the store is becoming stale. What new technology or startups could help us to change the way that we interact with shoppers?
Novalia's focus is to add interactivity to everyday printed items. The reverse is screen printed with conductive carbon ink.
Novalia definitely nailed the brief.
Well, things are being invented all the time, all the way around the world, and not necessarily in the 4 walls of Unilever. So we're looking for innovation through collaboration, ways to engage with others to create new ideas for the future.
We wanted to find something new and different to amplify the new variant of the brand for us. So the Foundry came with the idea of So Far Sound.
So Far puts on secret gigs in people's living rooms in over 100 cities around the world every month.
We wanted to be something modern, something that is out there connecting with our guys and delivering something much more understated, which is the concept of the new variant, so it was a perfect match.
The Foundry is different because historically, a company like ours would do lots of market research, would even do test markets, and when it was perfect, we'd launch it and launch it big. And what this is about is creating the ability to launch and learn, to adjust as we go, to craft as we go, and in that way, create a different way of innovating for the future.
They just found the right partner, brought to us, and we are now making it happen to launch next year.
For us, we can tap into startups and see innovation, new ideas, new ways of doing things. But of course, for the startup as well, they can tap into really big brands, and also brands that have real geographic reach and budgets. So really, on both sides, we both win from this.
Working with Axe has given us the opportunity to take what we normally do and supercharge it.
It's good for them because we can make them bigger, and it's good for us because they exist already and they are already talking to our target.
I think the Foundry is going to change the way we do things moving forward.
Where the magic really happens is when the power of our brands and our marketeers combine with the ingenuity and the innovation of a startup. Individually, interesting, together, invincible.
What you saw there was an overview of the Foundry, and at the heart of the Foundry lied this four-step process, which was incredibly simple, but incredibly impactful. It always started with a brief, and we would always start with, what are the needs of the actual business? So we were not a unit that sat on the side of Unilever. We were a capability that really enabled everyone in the core business to put up their briefs. And we would always take a brief from the core business, and we'd take budget from the core business to put behind that brief. And then we'd go out and we'd invite startups to apply. And you can still see this today on the Unilever Foundry website. There's a whole bunch of different challenges that startups can apply to. And we'd go out and also find startups ourselves. We'd invite the top ones to come in and pitch, and we'd look at about 200 per brief probably, and we'd get that back to 5 or 6 that would come in and pitch. And then we'd choose one and move it into a pilot. And if the pilot worked, we would then move that into a longer-term partnership. And the Foundry is still very much continuing in this way. And this model is now being picked up by a lot of other corporates that we're working with through CoCubed, because it's incredibly simple but incredibly impactful. The second thing we had to do, though, was one thing to have a process, but if you've just got the process and you've still got an old culture, then nothing actually happens. And so we had to transform the culture. And to do this, we did a lot of different things. And we called it, this is really about engaging hearts and minds across the organization. We wanted to take people on this journey of realizing that the future was being invented outside of our four walls and the four walls of our traditional partners, and we wanted them to experience what was happening in the startup land. So we did a lot of different things. One of them, we engaged with industry events, and we take people along to things like Melt in London or in other countries around the world, and it was a great way to get people to experience what was happening on the outside. We ran what we called quarterly Foundry Club events, where we'd look at a particular topic, so artificial intelligence or Internet of Things, for instance, and we'd bring in a keynote speaker and a few startups, and we'd call that practical inspiration. It was sort of raising the ceiling on what was happening in the tech world, but providing some partners that they could be working with. We did startup speed dating sessions, where we invited startups to come in and speed date with our marketeers. And the closer we got entrepreneurs to working with our marketeers, the more entrepreneurial we became. We realized that entrepreneurship is contagious, and the closer you get, the more it rubs off. And so, I think to change the culture, my suggestion would be to you is just get close. I thought Foundry was so cool. Does anyone watch Dragon's Den? I don't know if there's an equivalent in India, but I love Dragon's Den. And I thought what we were doing at the Foundry was even cooler than Dragon's Den. So we tried to make it into a TV show, but that didn't really work. But we had a bit of fun doing it. We did socials, and we did lots of internal propaganda, and we really saw our role as transforming the culture to enable experimentation. So it's one thing to have a process, it's one thing to have people on board, but if you don't have the startups, then you don't have a way of engaging. And for us, this platform thing was really the Foundry. So the Foundry as a website, as a platform, it was sort of like a job board. If you think about startups almost like people. So if you want to recruit great people, you have a job board and you post your jobs and people apply against that, but the best people are quite busy. And so it's important that you're going out and proactively finding them, and that's the role of headhunters. And so we had our job board, if you like, which is still very much ongoing today. And then through CoCube, the business that I run, we pulled together a global network of scouts that find the best startups in the world. And we've got access to over 500,000 startups, which means that you're not just working with the best startups that are coming to you, you're working with the best startups in the world. But obviously, to engage with that many scouts and that many startups is incredibly complex. So we help, and the Foundry at Unilever helps to do all the heavy lifting on that process to make it easy for brands to put up a challenge and to find a solution. So fast forward 3 years, and Foundry just celebrated its 3rd birthday. A lot's happened. In fact, Unilever's run pilots with over 150 different startups around the world, and we're seeing a huge amount of those starting to really impact the business. But here's a bit of an overview of some of the key numbers. So over 3 years, Foundry has engaged with over 1,500 of its marketeers in 7 countries around the world. 300 of them have gone on to be mentors of startups. And when you get that level of engagement, you start to get real transformation in the culture of the business. Like I said, we've run Unilever Foundry has run pilots with 150 different startups, and almost half of them are being scaled. So you see, over 70 of those startups going on to then transform the very innovation pipeline, if you like, of the organization. And there's a really solid business case. The business case here is very simple: cheaper, better, faster. And when we looked back historically at how these startups were performing versus traditional ways of working, what we found was staggering. We found that they were bringing in technology that was about half the cost of traditional ways of working. We found that they were bringing solutions to us that delivered like click-through rates or results that were about 40% better than the traditional ways of working. And they allowed us to get to the destination faster. In fact, they were allowing us to experiment at a rate that was at least twice as fast as traditional ways of working. And therefore, our brands, Unilever's brands, decided to put over $40 million of their marketing budget into startups. And that was competing against money that could have gone into TV or into Google or Facebook. They saw that because of the business case, there was an opportunity to invest far more into startups. So here's a short video that just gives a bit of an overview of some of the pilots that we did, and then we'll dig into that a bit more.
Marmite is a very giftable product. So there was a big trend for personalisation. We were seeing lots of other brands doing it. It's something we wanted to do ourselves, but weren't quite sure how to approach it.
We wanted to find direct-to-consumer product sales, and the Foundry, finding Intervino, was the way that we were able to do that.
So what we wanted to do was do a pilot to see if we could make a campaign successful that offered consumers the ability to personalise their own jars of Marmite.
We offered a Facebook app in which consumers could go direct to our Facebook page, type in their details, the name they wanted on the product, and then that would be sent straight through to Intervino, and Intervino would fulfil the orders for us.
Because it's been so successful, other brands are now really interested and looking to do such campaigns themselves. So it's really great for a startup company like Intervino to get into a company like Unilever and be able to develop and roll out their expertise to other brands.
And of course it's great for Unilever being such a big company. It gives us the flexibility to be agile and to adapt to the changing environments and help us to compete with those smaller businesses and remain relevant.
So that gives you a bit of a taste of some of the pilots that we did. From a media perspective, I think what's interesting here is that startups are really taking us into new spaces. So, the Intervino example of personalizing Marmite almost makes packaging more of a media. We worked a lot with Beacon Tech and other technologies to look at how we can turbocharge the 3 million ice cream cabinets that Unilever has and turn that from something that does a great job of keeping your ice cream cold into something that can actually be engaging and interactive for consumers. And in media dark spaces, we used, this is 3 years ago, so it was before chatbots became what they are today, but we started to experiment with chatbots and looking at how we can use chatbots to engage with people in media dark spaces through the text-based messaging. So, a huge amount of innovation. I think what we're seeing through CoCubed is a massive amount of innovation coming from across the startup ecosystem. And I thought I'd just pull out a few of the key trends that we're seeing really coming to life amongst startups. So one of the things that we're seeing is UGC is moving from UGC is a way to get new creative. So you saw the example of Elapic, how they basically go through social feeds and pull out the best images, to UGC as a channel. And you see the blogging platforms, and obviously you're probably working with a lot of those blogging platforms already, but within the blogging platforms, there's a lot of innovation on how you can actually engage with their influencers in new and innovative ways. We're seeing programmatic move from simply being about programmatic buying to programmatic creative, and I think the rise of of AI as a tool to enable not just images and videos, but also music. It starts to enable you to become very personalized in the way that you engage with consumers. And there's lots of great case studies that are starting to be built around that, some of which you've seen here at the conference. And then the third thing that we've seen a lot of is chatbots really moving from help desk to chatbots as a tool for marketing engagement. And with that, a whole bunch of different visuals. And the 14,000 startups that we've identified in the marketing and ad tech space are really driving that transformation. And there's lots of other trends that we could talk about, but those were really the three key media trends that we picked out. What I wanted to finish off was just this realization, hopefully that you've seen, that the future is being invented. The future of media, the future of marketing is being invented by the startup ecosystem. And to engage with that, you have to think about these three things. How are you changing and optimizing the processes, the culture, and the platforms that you have to engage with that? Because the reality is that, I really like that Jack Welch quote, that if the pace of change on the outside of your organization is faster than the pace of change on the inside, then the end is near. And so with 14,000 marketing and ad tech startups popping up, it's time to engage. Thank you.